We begin in Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a credible military threat is the best way to deter Iran's nuclear ambitions. He noted that it becomes harder to do, though, when the wait becomes longer. Netanyahu is speaking just days after reports surfaced that Iran had increased its uranium enrichment to 84%, leaving only a small gap before it hits its weapons-grade production at 90%. Let's bring in I-24 News Middle East correspondent Ariel Oseran joining us live in studio. Good morning to you. Benjamin Netanyahu speaking about Iran's nuclear ambitions. This is not the first time or the last that Israel will speak about Iran's nuclear capabilities. But why is it different this time?
Indeed, Hamda. So we're looking at this is perhaps the first major statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu since reassuming office, of outlining how he sees Israel's strategy towards Iran, towards its nuclear program, especially amid the reports that Iran is just 6% below weapons-grade enrichment levels. Now, this comes as the nuclear talks, indirect talks in Vienna between world powers and Iran stalled already. The Americans are saying that it's dead in the water, it's irrelevant with everything else that's going on with Iran. And what Netanyahu is trying to do here is he's trying to put the threat, the military threat that is on the table already. It has been on the table. He's trying to emphasize that this is where things are going, given that talks in Vienna are stalled. Let's take a listen to part of what Prime Minister Netanyahu said yesterday at the Hartog Security Conference in Tel Aviv.
The only thing that has credibly stopped rogue nations from developing nuclear weapons is a credible military threat or a credible military action. You can couple that with crippling economic sanctions, but that's not a sufficient condition. A necessary condition, and often a sufficient condition, is credible military action. The longer you wait, the harder that becomes. We've waited very long. In any case, I can tell you that I will do everything in my power to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. That is not merely an Israeli interest, it's an American interest, it's in the interest of the entire world.
So not only, as he says, is it in the interest of the entire world, but he also gives a historical kind of outlining of how previous threats that only with a credible military threat or military action were these programs thwarted. He's talking about the 1981 strike, Israeli strike on the Iraqi nuclear facility, as well as in 2007 against the Syrian power plant. Now, Libya dropped its pursuit of nuclear weapons out of fear, according to Netanyahu, out of fear of a credible U.S. threat. And North Korea, the next country, they have not stopped their nuclear program. It continues unabated. Netanyahu explains the reason for that is because there is no credible military threat against North Korea.
Well, there were also reports in recent weeks about secret meetings that the Prime Minister held with the security establishment in which they decided to ramp up preparations and readiness to strike Iran. What do we know there?
Right, Hamda. So this is based on a report last night on Israel's Channel 12. It didn't attribute the report to any official, but it's talking about at least 5 meetings that Prime Minister Netanyahu held over the past few weeks with the top of Israel's security establishment, the defense minister, the chief of military, head of the Mossad, national security, head of military intel, and other relevant units in the army, talking about ramping up preparation and plans for military strike. Now, this is a shift that we've seen about like 4 or 5 months ago, where it was believed that the diplomatic avenue is not going to reach anywhere. Israel, they were saying that there's about a year from being able to carry out such a strike. There was also criticism by the previous government that when Netanyahu was in power, there was no proper plans in place. This appears to be attempts to try and show that Israel is preparing for it, multiple meetings. And in the report, it also stated that what was in those meetings, Netanyahu also briefed U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, as well as French President Emmanuel Macron in their previous meetings.